Any questions, comments, concerns, observations, hallucinations, anything we can help you guys with?
Yeah, I have a question. So when you're going to your close, right? You do the calendar close.
Uh-huh.
So we got the price, we got the time. Do you go any other questions and then assume that you can write in the rate that you want, or are you now dividing it up and saying, "Here's my fee," and then what are we going to offer?
So I usually bring up the fee whenever it either came up in the pre-qualification or I believe that it's going to be an issue. If they don't ask me about the fee, I just assume a 6% basically. If they don't ask about it, I just basically assume that they don't have a problem with it. And then I start explaining the contract to them, and then professional fees probably on the 5th or 6th page in there.
Right.
By the time they get there, they've already signed 6 documents. They're like, this is the price that we agreed upon. This is the start date. This is the term of the contract. That's the standard 6% fee. Just need an initial right there.
And as it relates to NAR
Yeah.
and the settlement, how are you going to?
So I just noticed yesterday on the listing agreement, they added a new form. I think it's called the broker compensation agreement. So that form actually explains that very well. So what I noticed is the listing agreement, page 1 is the same exact page. It's just one additional page that gets added on there that basically says commissions are 100% negotiable. Buyer broker commissions are typically paid by the broker agreement that they have. If you decide to offer something, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So if you print out, like if you go on just a new listing agreement and just print it out, read that form, and that form discloses everything as it relates to the NAR settlement agreement.
Yeah, and then I think if they ask you a question about that, then you can say something like, well, sure, like, what have you been hearing? So you kind of get the temperature. And then based on that, you can decide where you want to go with it and in terms of how you're going to explain it.
Yeah. So it doesn't mean that sellers can't offer commission. It just means that they can't advertise what they're offering on the MLS. That's all it means.
Right.
So it doesn't mean that you can't offer it. Like, and
Yeah.
to be quite honest, they've never had to offer anything. You could offer, like I've had listings that the seller only wants to pay $10,000 flat fee.
Yeah.
And we advertise it as a $10,000 flat fee on the MLS.
I had a seller who said, "I heard you don't have to pay anything. Tell me I'm wrong." Tell me I'm wrong.
What I would say to that, look, if they do that, I would just be playful. I'd be like, yeah, that'd be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to not be able to pay if I didn't have to.
Right.
You know, so what I'd like to do is just kind of go over with you the only 2 rule changes that actually apply to you in any way. And then we can discuss what you want to do as far as compensation is concerned, because whatever you decide, I'll support you 100%. Fair enough?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yeah. It's like, all right, well, the 2 changes that actually apply to you are the following. One is we're not able to put compensation in the multiple listing service. We used to be able to do that. We're not able to do that. We can still offer compensation. We just can't put it there. Number 2 is we can offer concession because that's allowed, right? So you mentioned, you know, I don't want to pay anything. That's perfectly fine if you decide to do that. Before you make that decision, let's discuss how we compensate agents and how that would affect ultimately how much you can get and how it's actually a tool that we use to market the property. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Yeah. So let's imagine that we go into a neighborhood or a geographic area where you're shopping for a home and there's 10 homes for sale. 7 are offering to pay your buyer's agent, either in the form of a concession or in the form of a percentage of agreed upon purchase and sales price. 3 of them are not offering to compensate your agent. As a buyer, which properties would you instruct your agent to show you first? Ones that were going to compensate your agent or ones that weren't?
I mean, I know the answer that you're leading me to, but I would say the one that I want to see, right?
Yeah, which I appreciate. At the same time, if the one that you wanted to see caused you to have to pay your buyer's agent, is that cool with you?
That would mean I would have less of a down, right?
Yeah.
But
you see what I'm saying? So like,
or you can say, look, if that property that you wanted to go see wasn't offering any sort of concession and you knew that now that concession was coming from your pocket, would you factor that into the purchase price?
Right. Like nothing works all the time.
Yeah.
So like what I just gave to you will work like 90% of the time.
Right.
You'll get the 10%. It's like, wow, you know, I want to get all analytical about it. Right. So there's in Washington, I think it is, they've already passed the rules and applied them. And we have a guy in our group coaching call. He's like, yeah, they did it like 5 months ago. I'm like, did it change anything? He was like, no. So the way I describe this to people is like, you know where you want to go somewhere and you put it in like your phone, like Google Maps or like iMaps? It gives you two choices. One is a paid route, a toll. Two is a free one. One will save you 5 minutes, but you both end up where? In the same place. So what this conversation is we're going to end up in the same place. We're just going to have to take a little detour for 5 minutes and have a conversation about it. But we're going to end up right back at the same place.
At the Ventura MLS a couple weeks ago, they had an agent there, and she said that they had the market after 3 weeks with 0 commission offer.
Yeah.
They got 0 showing.
Yeah.
So she told her seller, then they started offering nicer. Now we understand.
Yeah.
So
And
that's happened.
and to your point,
You can even use that as an example. Like,
Yeah.
hey, look, we had
Yep.
a couple of agents already offer out 0 compensation. And we noticed that after a period of 2 to 3 weeks of not getting any showings, they modified the compensation to actually offer something.
and then I think it also will become part of the price adjustment conversation. So like, yeah, if you recall, we had a conversation about compensation and how it was a marketing tool, and you had a couple choices and you elected that we didn't want to offer out compensation. And what that is equated to is we actually haven't had any showings in 3 weeks. Do you think those two things are related in some way? What's interesting is I did some homework, and 5 properties that are in your price point went under contract. Do you know what they all had in common? They were all offering out compensation. So we have a choice to make, and the choice is yours. Whatever you decide is fine. One is we can keep doing what we're doing and get the same result, which is no showings and no offers. Or 2 is we can make an adjustment and offer either a concession or a percentage of an agreed upon purchase and sales price, which will increase the chances that we'll get some showings and therefore an offer on the table. Based on what you're looking to accomplish and why, based on the time frame you'd like to make this happen in, what do you think we should do? People who are like intelligent and have motivation will be like, yeah, that's what I want to do. People who aren't motivated will fight you.
Yeah, and Aaron, I would say maybe like 20% might say this. So Aaron, what are paying you for?
Yeah. So if somebody says that, it's like, well, I appreciate you asking. And, what I'm aware of is the professional fee is one of the tools that we actually use to market the property, right? Because agents don't control people buy, but they do have influence over what they see. So let's imagine for a moment that there were 10 other properties available for sale. 7 of them are offering to compensate the buyer's agent, and 3 of them are offering not to compensate them at all. If you were a buyer, not a seller, because I know those hats are different. And if you put on your buyer hat for a moment, which properties do you think you would instruct your agent to show you first? Ones that were going to compensate your agent or ones that weren't?
How does that work?
Don't you think most buyers feel very similar to you?
Yeah.
Just by you saying that demonstrates that you recognize that the professional fee is in fact a tool that we use to market the home. It's a fact, right? So, but the key there is delivery. So what I see most people do is they pontificate and want to explain.
Right.
That's wrong. Instead, you notice how I ask questions?
Yeah.
Which ones would you instruct because what I used to say before this rule change happened, if you were an agent, now we switch it to if you were a buyer and you were going to buy this home all over again, 7 of the homes are offering to compensate your agent, 3 aren't. Which one would you instruct your agent to show you first? That's easier for them to get into that frame. Now, when you said to me those other ones, I could have kept going. You know what I said instead? Why is that? Because I don't have to get in my pocket. I want you to say it.
Right.
You'll never argue with your own information. So instead of trying to tell people what they should be doing, asking questions to help them to self-discover what they should be doing. Because I know what the right thing is to do.
I was just gonna acknowledge. So I've known Aaron for a long time, and he has a way of structuring sentences that's like, it's just like beautiful. Like everything he just said sounded super sexy. Like I was like, yeah.
And then we try to say it, and it's like,
it doesn't come out the same when you try to sometimes say it, right? Like there was beautiful scripting of the way that he structures and puts words together, right? One of the things that I learned, and I'm just sharing my experience with it, is that when I would try to model it, I would trip myself up by trying to use his words. However, where I would find success is when I took his structure. So when I could break it down into the framework of what you're saying, it made everything simple. So if I break it down to 2 or 3 different steps where let's say, for example, like the first thing that you did when you were talking about that script is you said, you agreed with him. You're like, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, we can definitely do that. Walls down.
Yeah.
Right. So now
Don't make them wrong.
Yeah. You just put their defense down. Now it's time to go in for, let me introduce something else to you. Let me introduce just a different idea for you for a second here. Follow me along for a second. and then you put them in a malleable state where now you can insert your thoughts directly in their head and say
asking
with
them
a close.
questions, they think it's theirs.
It's their thoughts, exactly. So when you break it down to the structure, now the delivery becomes a lot simpler. So when he's answering a question or an objection, he's not thinking about what words he's going to say. He's more following just a pattern that he knows to fall back on that always works, right? Defense down, introduce topic, ask good questions, and then slide in his thoughts and then go in for a close. So all of that is in the structure. So the reason I share that is because when I look around the room, I feel like I think back to like when I would hear you say these things and we would be on our calls together.
We try to,
And then Jose, I remember this clearly. Jose would literally write down word for word every single thing that you said and would play it back in his car and recite it to try to get it down perfectly. And it was funny because he would short circuit when someone would say something slightly different and he's like, And I remember that call that we were on a group call and you said, you remember?
you got a brain, use it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I
we
said,
got one
Jose, you have a beautiful brain. He's like, uh-huh. I'm like, use it. I remember when you called me, I don't know, maybe like 8 months later, and you were like, I got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I understand the process now. But once he understands the process, you could apply it to anything. I could sell pens. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, once you understand procedurally what's happening. And something that could like let defenses down. So like whenever there's tension like that, like the way you presented with that initial character, like, oh, you know, prove it to me, prove it to me. I'm going to try to diffuse that in some way.
Right.
With humor. I'm going to mess around a little bit,
Yeah.
you know? Like I remember when I would say like, they would ask me like, well, what do you actually think it's worth, Aaron? I'm like, do I have permission to be candid, straightforward? They're like, yeah. I'm like, you're not going to get angry and throw me out of the house? And they're like, maybe. He's like, ha, there's tension.
Right.
I do that to break the tension purposely.
Yeah.
So yeah, either agree, like acknowledge or break tension. What's the next step?
Question, close.
Yeah. Question, to self-discover. And it's really them telling me, even though I know, because they'll never argue with their own information. Then once they have self-discovered, now I'm going to give them two options. That's called the lesser of two evils. One's shitty, one's a little better. We can keep doing what we're doing now and have to revisit this conversation in 3 weeks or a month. Or we can make an adjustment and get you one step closer to Texas. What do most people do? Here's what I think we should do. And whenever you do that, how many people here are married? Yeah, how does that work? Here's exactly what I think we should do. How does that work? No, it doesn't. So you're inviting friction. Instead of me saying to you like, hey, what do you think we should do? And they're like, well, and if you do this right, what are they going to say to you?
Well, what do you think?
What do you think, Aaron? See, the problem is like you give your own opinion before you're asked. How many opinions do you listen to before you're asked? Like if you don't ask somebody for their opinion, they give it to you. How does it make you feel?
This person doesn't understand
Yeah,
me. This
like I
person
just shut
doesn't
down. I'm
know
not even
me.
paying attention.
No,
But
it puts the wall up.
put the wall up immediately. How many people have got unsolicited parenting advice from other parents? Yeah. You're like, why the fuck are you telling me this? Like, I don't understand why you're doing this. Right? But if you ask somebody for advice or you ask somebody for their opinion, how closely are you paying attention now? Fully.
I'm also a believer in chanting a lot. I know I was pretty soft on chanting for a long, like telling people to chant for a long time, but I'm a big time believer in that because that's where that worked for me, where I would literally like take his words and then chant them or practice the delivery of it. And then when I was involved in a role play situation or in a real life situation, the words would start to come out. 100%.
You also practice when people say stuff to you, you're like, wow.
Well, it's all the, like,
It's like, you know, somebody's like, man, will you do it for 5%? He's like, that's rehearsed.
The eye flicker and the look
It's
out.
not,
Stick out.
that's not his natural thing. Like, I'm telling you, he sits in a room and he's like, I don't know, man.
and they have no idea.
They have no idea.
They have no idea that it's.
But it's
not-
just conditioning. So really what's percolating to the surface, it's kind of both. I need to know what to say. There's freedom. Doesn't have to be
word by
actually
word.
verbatim. When people say to me, you know, verbatim, I'm like, you're dumb. Okay. It's stupid. So it doesn't have to be actually verbatim, but there is truth that I have to know.
And practice it.
I have to practice language. And then there's also real truth that if I practice all the language and do it verbatim and I don't understand the process, I will not get the outcome I want. And then you'll start to think something's wrong with you. But it's not. You're just not.
understanding.
You're not understanding the process.
basically. But for you to go into a situation like hear Aaron one time, this is what happens. They'll hear that script one time. Like, all right, I'm gonna go try it in person. And then they go out, they try it, and then it doesn't work. And like, oh, this doesn't work. But the reality is that they never took the time to practice it in any way, shape, or form.
Media is actually more valuable than money. Why would that be the case? It works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's not geographically constrained. It can work anywhere on the planet where there's an internet connection. Do you know I have somebody on a coaching call, a group coaching call from Dubai? Do you realize 200 years ago that would never fucking happen? You used to be limited geographically to where you were born and the village you lived in. Now I can use the internet to scour the billions of people on the planet to find the 100,000 that like your boy. You understand? It's permissionless leverage. Did you used to need permission to get on the radio? Yeah, and a lot of money. Do I need any permission to post a podcast? Nope. Did you need permission to get on TV? Back in the day, yes, and it costs a lot of money, or you had to be really talented. Do I need permission to post on social? No. Does it make sense as to why I'm posting 5 times a day on YouTube and 3 to 4 times a day on all platforms? Why? Because it's actually currency. Attention is currency. It's more valuable than money. Okay? And then the highest form of leverage is code. It's software. Why would that be superior to media? No geographic boundaries, just like media. It costs no money to duplicate or replicate once you create it once. Okay? Let's think about the richest people on the planet. Oracle, Ellison, code. Zuckerberg, Facebook, code. Bezos, Amazon, code. Are you noticing a pattern? Okay. Elon Musk, code. Tesla's actually a data company and a software company. Okay. And PayPal before that was software. You have to understand these different forms of leverages, because if I turn myself into like this hustle culture, I will outwork you. Rah. Where is that on this? Do you understand what I'm saying to you? If that's the only thing that's operating in my brain, you don't understand leverage, and it's a 2x opportunity. You'll be stuck there. Okay? So, the next thing I need to know and understand is this thing called the opportunity ladder. So let's say you do laundry for a living. Like you're the Heisman Trophy winner of doing laundry. How much leverage do you have? None, because you got to be there to do laundry, right? Now let's say you manage a laundromat. How much leverage do you have? A little bit, not much, right? You got a few employees. Now let's say you own the laundromat. You have leverage, but you only have one form, labor. You're also limited geographically with who you can serve, because who can you serve if you own the laundromat? 15, 20-mile radius, right? That's it. So it's a limited opportunity. Let's call it $1 million opportunity, okay? Now let's say you franchise the laundromat. Who can you serve now? Anyone in the country. But you added a form of leverage, which was what? Capital, because you can use other people's money to build out other laundromats. Does that make sense? You took $1 million opportunity, turned it into a $100 million opportunity by adding one form of leverage. Now let's say you create a software that runs all laundromats, independent of whether or not they're in your franchise system or not. And it works all throughout the planet. And all you do is take like 5 cents of gross sales on every dollar. Now who can you serve? Anyone on the planet? And you turned, because you added the highest form of leverage, you turned a $100 million opportunity, turned it into a $1 billion opportunity. Are you guys with me? Say yes. Yes. Okay. So what is the equivalent of doing laundry in real estate? Wait a minute. Did you notice the energy in the room? I know it's late. We've been here for a while, but did you notice the energy in the room? I was like, what's the equivalent? You all, I felt your brains go, yeah, fuck. It's doing deals. What's the equivalent of managing the laundromat? Nope. A team. Ooh. What's the equivalent of owning the laundromat? That's a brokerage firm. Limited geographically. You have labor, right? It's a limited opportunity geographically. What's the equivalent of franchising? Keller Williams, Century 21, like these franchise models, right? Because they take a 6% royalty fee. They can do it anywhere in the country. They have the leverage of labor and other people's money to build out offices. Make sense? What's the equivalent of software? Now, before you answer, okay, I'm not talking YLOPO. I'm not talking Follow Up Boss. I'm not talking software that we use. I'm talking, remember, brokerages are just platforms. They don't sell any real estate. So what is a platform for processing transactions? Software. EXP. It's just software that you can plug into for $150 and $85 a month to process your transactions. That is all it is. Let that sink in for a second. Stay with me. So this picture's of me looking quite fit. And what I've been doing over the last 19 months is running up the opportunity ladder. I have let go of everything. It's 2x. I let go of $850,000 in income like this because I realized it was the lowest form of leverage. I started to bang on media on a regular basis, and I'm being really aggressive with the software. And as I do that, my life is getting easier. As I'm doing that, I'm not missing out on opportunities to spend time with relationships. As I'm doing that, I'm able to have a bigger impact on more people. Why do I feel like the next 3 to 5 years is going to be the golden era of agent attraction? Couple things, okay? We have a lot of disruption happening in our industry, but this chart says it all. The company retained dollar to brokerage firms over the last 50 years has gone, meaning for every dollar that comes into the brokerage firm, they used to keep 50% of it, 50 cents. They are currently keeping between 10 and 11%. That is a massive compression of net. They only have 3 ways to deal with it. Raise fees, which they've been doing. What else? Volume. They got to do more ancillary services, or they have to get rid of staff and space. Do you know what EXP has done? Gotten rid of staff and space. This is called the facts. There's no way around this. You can give me all this other bullshit and all this other hype and stuff. Show me the money. In the short term, the stock market is a voting machine. I think. Do you know what it is in the long term? A fucking weighing machine. Who's making money? Right? This tells us that the majority of brokers are not making money. Now, this next stat is pretty wild. There's 120,000 brokers in the United States. 70% of them have less than 10 agents. What do we know about that broker? They are in production because they're not making no money otherwise. Volume went from 6 million to 3.9 million last year. So if you were that broker in production, not making any money off that, what would be the logical thing you would do? I'd want to go back into production full time. Or I would want to outsource the brokerage to something like a cloud-based brokerage firm who does all the paperwork and does all that stuff so you could just focus on attracting agents and doing deals. Is this making sense to you? Say yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then the last thing I believe, in my opinion, as to part of the reason why this is going to be the biggest opportunity of my lifetime and why I'm taking it so seriously, is this thing in game theory called a Schelling point. And what a Schelling point is if you have 2 competitors that can never speak to each other, with a high degree of probability, they are going to converge on the same thing with no communication. So in other words, let's say I'm selling widgets for $10 and Dan's selling widgets for $13. Do not be surprised in 3 to 5 years if we're both selling them for $12. We will converge on the same thing. Do you know what I see happening in the brokerage industry? We're all converging on the same thing, which is you have to get rid of staff and space. Nobody's talking to each other, but they're converging on the same thing, and they're converging on caps, and they're converging on equity and rev share. Does that make sense? Without actually speaking to each other. So people have a choice, because I know that there's other cloud-based brokerages out there. And what I tell them is like, look, you could either go with something's proven at scale and profitable, $120 million in the bank, debt-free, and their stock pays a dividend, or a startup that's unproven. 1 year ago, I had brought in 25 agents that had turned into 64, and I made $3,587 in revenue share. Now, how many doors would you have to own to get $3,500 a month in residual income at $500 a door? A bunch. That's a bunch of those down payments. So it's okay. It's not bad. Pays for housing, pays for perhaps some transportation. Here's where it is today, a year later. That number's actually a little light, but it's 233 agents, $14,800 last month. Guys, I need you guys to understand something. $14,800 a month in residual income is the equivalent of $2.6 million invested at 6%. How much of the 2.6 do you currently have? How much do you need? And how long would it take for you? And how many fucking houses that have cat farms? And how much time would you have to spend to get that? A lifetime? 20 years? 30 years? I did it in 19 months, and you could do the exact same thing. And this is my chart, okay? MJ has his chart. I promise you guys, my goal and objective is that my revenue share is going to dwarf the earnings that I made selling real estate over time, just like MJ did. Because I'm choosing a vehicle that compounds and is leveraged. And this is what's been happening. You could see up at the beginning, it started off in 2022 at $1,100. And in 2024, it's averaging between $15,000 to $16,000 a month. Now, this has allowed me, this vehicle, to no longer miss soccer games. It has allowed me to make investments in personal relationships. It has allowed me to start a Bible study because I have time for it. It's allowed me to take care of my health. I was skinny fat before, okay? Like out of shape because I was pouring all of my energy into selling real estate in high volume. It's allowed me to reclaim time. So I implore you, okay? If you are in this room and you're an elite builder, make a plan to attract one agent for the next 12 months. Find me in 5 years when this room has 2,000 people in it and thank me. Find somebody in the room that invited you. If you want to have a confidential conversation about it, we're more than happy to do so because we're going to thousands. Just like Drake says, we'll do it with you or we'll do it without you. Either one's fine. But I feel supremely confident. I know I speak for myself and the rest of the leadership team here, as you've seen, like selflessly flying from, out of the country, not being paid to do this, right? Flying all over the country to pour into you guys and add value. Like we're all here to do that. And what I'd like to do to, end our time together in this section is I'm going to end our meeting the same way I end all my meetings with 2 claps and a Ric Flair. So that requires everybody stand up. Come on, I want the energy. And I want the people upstairs to be like, what the fuck are they doing down there? Okay? So everybody get this? Say yes? Yes. Okay, good. Ooh, you feel the energy? I fucking love it, bro. I love it. You ready? Give me 2 claps and a Ric Flair. Listen, we appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for coming out. That's lame, dude. This is about making money. It's bottom line. It's profit. So those aren't our people.
Right.
And that's cool.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. I'm not here to be a people pleaser. Like that's not why I'm doing this, right? Like that's not why I have taken the opportunity to step in front of the camera and speak about what I know. That's not why, right? Like when you talk about serving, you do it without the expectation of what the return is. I really want to see you win. Right? Like I'm willing to spend hours of my week with you because I really want to see where this goes and how far you can take it.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, right? Like I don't believe that the ego boost that you get from someone knowing you is more valuable than what you offer in that moment. And here's what I mean by that. I have found myself after realizing that people are recognizing me for what I've done and been able to do with Ryan. People are recognizing me, but I need to be ready to give them something to take away.
Yeah.
Right? The hi, it's me. Hi. Like that's not giving anymore.
It's
right?
not even,
like,
that's not an exchange of value.
And so now my focus now is on, okay, when that individual asks me something, will I have a real answer for them? Something tactical that they can apply right away. Right? And I'm constantly thinking that, okay, I can see people sometimes standing off to the side. It's me and Ryan standing there. We were at an event last week and they're standing, and I know they're trying to get to Ryan. Yeah. Right. And you almost want to say, just come on.
Just come on.
Like, just come on. Let's get it done. Right. But you wait for them to take their opportunity. Sometimes they take it. Sometimes they don't. All right. And I'm like, oh, you missed out because that was the moment for you. Right. You're probably never going to get him by himself and steal again. Yeah. Right. And so it's like, take the moment. And then the videographer comes up to me. He's like, oh, I recognize you from da-da-da. And I'm like, yeah, cool. And as I'm talking, I'm like, he's not coming because of just my nice video, right? Like he sees value. And so what value can I give in order, like, for him to walk away with feeling like, they're the real, like he's real. Like he's not just one of these guys up here talking and being an imposter. He's actually trying to help people.
It's true for me as I hear you say that. That means like you are, you're equipped to be a leader because you're thinking to yourself instead of, the value of this is the boost of ego. It's not like, if you recognize me, that's cool, but I want to be able to exchange value with you. Like I believe, I was telling my wife this the other day, before I go on stage or before I do a talk, it's more like, hey, listen, like, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for this platform. Thank you for the ability to be able to share something that could be positive or helpful in some way. So give me the strength. Give me the emotional intelligence. Give me the intellectual intelligence. Give me the recall. Give me the sense of humor. Give me the enthusiasm to be able to pour out so I can help somebody in a positive way. And reminding myself, it's not me. It comes through me.
Right.
And this isn't for me. It is for you,
yeah.
right? And it's
Yeah.
for them. And like, amen. And then you go do your thing. And I think if you do that, it creates like a shield,
Yep.
a protective shield where it's so easy for that to go straight to your head
Yeah.
and, start to make it about you.
Yeah. What you're saying isn't coming from you, right? Like you're doing everything to exercise the muscle, but it's a calling.
Yeah.
So you have to be aware of that and know that. And I'm aware, man. Like I'm telling you, like I don't take anything that I've experienced in the last 6 months, 7 months for granted.
Yeah.
Because I understand that this is the beginning.
Yes.
And I know where things can go.
Yeah.
But enough about me.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Aaron.
Yeah.
You said you did a 13K year.
Yes.
And then 100 plus transactions
Yeah. 5 years later.
5 years later.
Yeah.
Tell me what contributed to that type of growth
Yep.
in that short amount of time.
So one was, I read in retrospect, I didn't know this at the time,
Yeah.
but there was a book by Ray Dalio called Principles. And in that book, he says you need an accurate assessment of reality in order to produce a good outcome. Now, when he said that at the time, I'm like, hey, that's cute. Like, that's kind of clever. You know what I mean? But the more I marinated on that, the more I was like, wow, that's really true. Not the way I think it is or the way social tells me it is, but the way it actually is. And he also had this formula that a dream plus dealing with reality plus determination equals a successful life.
That's good.
What's interesting about that is if you ask yourself a question, which part of that formula is actually the most challenging? It's like, was it a dream? No, everybody's got a dream.
Everybody's got a dream.
Is it determination? People have various degrees of determination. It's the dealing with reality piece. That's the hardest because then I have to admit to myself, I'm not as fast as I thought I was, as quick as I thought I was, as smart I thought as I was, as cool as I thought as I was.
Yeah.
And that for some people is so uncomfortable that they shut down, right? So the accurate assessment reality that I then acquired was, hey, the money's not in the service. The money's in the selling of the service. So like, that doesn't mean we don't give people good service.
Right.
That's expected. Like in real estate, they expect you to know how to read a contract. They expect you to know what you're talking about. They expect you to know how to negotiate. What I tell people all the time is like, do you jump up and down when you walk into Whole Foods and they have groceries? Like, no, that's the expectation.
Right,
They're
right.
going to have groceries there.
Yeah.
You're not like, oh my God, guys, this is dope. You got groceries today. Where the money's at, though, is learning how to sell the service. See, I spent that full year stacking my time on things that weren't actually the thing. I didn't know what the thing was. So once I got that accurate assessment, I was like, oh, that's what's true. So then I got obsessed with learning how to sell the service. So I role played twice a day, 6 days a week for 3 years. I would hand write out scripts by hand.
Wow.
Right? Because in real estate, the conversation, well, the people change, the situations change, the houses change. The conversation never changes. It's always the same. Like, my friend's an agent. Will you cut your commission? Never heard of your company. Like it's over and over again.
Yeah.
And in the real estate business, there's only opportunities. There's no security. And I'm very motivated by security, right? Particularly coming from a family where they didn't have a lot of resources. So what I realized is like, if I get my skills to such a degree that if there is an opportunity, there's an 85% chance I'll be able to take advantage of that opportunity. I've just created security for myself and my family. So I got maniacal around practice. I would record myself doing presentations. I would record role playing, right? And I sought out role play partners that were doing like 200 transactions and I'm doing like a little.
Yeah.
Right? And pestered them and, bothered them to get into their schedules.
Yeah.
So that was the first accurate assessment of reality. The second accurate assessment of reality is that you can only grow to the proportion that your systems will allow you to. So I don't care how much motivation you do. I don't care how much rah-rah you go to. I don't care how much you go to these all these speakers that'll even be at WealthCon and they're like motivating. Bro, if you don't have systems in place, you will plateau.
Yeah.
You will not grow. So with that recognition, we started to build a team around being able to process deals. Because most agents, what happens is they might get good at the soft skill, but they get capped out at like 3 to 4 transactions a month because they're doing everything behind the scenes.
Gotcha.
So we created systems really with the help of my wife because she's the operations manager. She's a specialist on the profile, so she's perfect for that.
Okay.
Analytical by nature.
Yeah.
And that allowed me to just throw stuff over my shoulder. So we became a conveyor belt for listings where I could take 10, 15 listings personally per month, throw them over my shoulder, and keep it moving.
Going. Wow.
Yeah. So those two accurate assessments are really what allowed us to get to that place.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's incredible. That every time I hear a success story about how they scaled or how they improved their business, it always starts with developing a system.
Yeah.
And every time I hear about that, there's usually a woman behind it.
Yeah. You know what's fascinating about that? I don't know if you know this, but Mr. Wonderful, he said he only invests on Shark Tank with women.
Really?
Yeah. Do you know why he said why?
Why?
One is they're better allocators of resources.
Okay.
And two, they have smaller egos.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I was like, wow, dude,
Yeah,
that's
I
pretty
know.
insightful. Because, like, yeah, that's spot on.
Yeah.
And what's true about that, Justin, I find that so fascinating that you notice that all of my team is women.
yeah. I'm seeing it over and over again. I mean, I'm seeing it in our own system, right? Like in our own company, where a lot of the men that you see, yeah, there might be some faces that you might recognize, and they may be up speaking, and they may be doing, and but a lot of the really gritty work that needs to get done, that's like time consuming, but also it has to be time efficient.
Yeah.
They're there. The women are there, and they're just really good at it. I always tell my wife, like, you're smarter than me in every way. Like, I don't have an argument for what you're saying.
No, and
right?
I think that they have the capacity. I think by nature, men are very singularly focused, and women have the capacity to have their attention or awareness in multiple places at one time.
Yep.
So they could be like, talking to the kids, cooking something,
Yep.
like watching what's on TV, talking to you, like all at the same time. Where we're like, nah, dude, I need like one thing.
No, 1,000%. 1,000%. So, yeah, I mean, how important has, creating the content been to the growth of the business?
Yeah, so I heard something recently that was very true for me, was that if you are not good at marketing, you have to become a world-class salesperson. So that's what I did, because I had a kind of like a mentor in my life that had a lot of influence over thinking, and he was saying that that's stupid and dumb and you shouldn't do it. That you should just focus on beating the bushes, pounding, dialing, smile, dial, make a pile, that sort of thing. And I didn't focus on brand building. And it wasn't until recently, like as I made this transition, I used to own part of a KW office. I sold it back in order to participate with EXP.
Okay.
And I recognized about a year ago, right before we got involved, patterns. So patterns, like Tony Robbins says, like if you want to create outcomes that are favorable, it's based on the quality of your choices.
Right.
We naturally think we're great at making decisions.
Yeah.
But if you look at people's outcomes, they're not. And part of decision making is pattern recognition. So it's recognizing patterns, but then using the patterns.
Yep.
So one of the patterns that I was watching, I'm watching all of these individuals use media, because I don't believe it's social anymore. They say that, but they're all doing it wrong, because they're all taking pictures of themselves cooking or eating or on vacation. And what they don't realize is that the saturation of content on platforms is at like an all-time high. So more content will be put on Instagram today than in human history.
Right.
And tomorrow will be the same. Right. So when that happens, then from a supply and demand perspective, what becomes more valuable and more sought after is quality of what's being said, not pictures of your food at your mom's house eating dinner, and also production quality. So I'm watching these patterns, and I'm watching the Paul brothers use attention to create Prime and become a billionaire. It's like, wait a minute. I'm watching the Kardashians use attention to create Skims and become billionaires. So if you ask a question like, what's more difficult, creating a product or distributing it?
Right.
It's distribution.
Yeah.
So when I noticed this pattern, I said to my team, because if we want to, I told Carter, like, what we're really doing is like a ministry. The more people that we can bring into it, the more we can love on them and help them.
Yep.
And the vision is to grow to thousands of agents. Like, we've grown to 194 in 16 months.
Wow.
But the vision is to grow to thousands. And I said to Carl, I'm like, I don't really understand this. I see the pattern. I see the tsunami, the wave.
Right.
But I don't really know. I don't know what the platforms are for.
Yeah.
I don't know how to use them. And before this, it was pictures of my wife posting pictures of our kids. Like, I really didn't know. So then I asked Jose, who's my business partner, and he's in the Collective Genius.
Okay.
And I said to Jose, hey, bro, who does social media the best? Who makes the most money? And he was like, yeah, there's a couple guys that have courses. Nobody makes more money than Ryan.
Yeah.
Like, nobody. Period. End of story, hands down. So that was like, okay, that's who I need to get proximity to.
Yeah.
And that's what made me reach out to you guys and then learn. We also brought like a media team, the ones who do the editing and posting for us, where they could be on calls with us. So we're just like, if our bodies are the hardware, our brains are the software, So we're just sucking out the software.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
like show us how to do this.
Yeah.
And very quickly, what's been happening now is that with attention, money and power follow attention, and then attention follows money and power.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a virtuous loop. Like Grant Cardone is the one who said that, and it's totally accurate. So now what I see is this is a land grab, because the barrier to entry now, like we're here at your guys' facility, and this is dope.
Yeah.
I asked you I'm like, yo, how much did the room cost to set up? You're like $100 grand. How much does this cost, right? So the barrier to entry for like small business owners now, I think is $2,000 to $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
Like editing, posting, if you're serious.
Yeah.
Because if you don't want to post stuff that just like your family members watch, you
Right.
need help.
Yeah.
So that's the barrier. I believe in the next 3 to 5 years, it'll be $10,000 a month, because that supply and demand, it'll just keep getting higher. Better quality production, right?
Yeah. And if you're trying to compete with us,
Right.
you're gonna spend $50K a month.
You know what's funny is I did an event for our a local event. We do socials.
Yep.
And there's a guy who owns a title company, and he was talking to me about like media, and he sees what I'm doing or whatever. And I was like, bro, you post like once a day. You can't keep up with me, dude. I'm
no.
like 3 or 4 times a day on all channels.
it just
like
won't-
it's not even close. Let's say we decided, because we're close to the beach, we're like, hey, let's take this affair to the beach. Now that's a very specific environment. And as such, it requires a very specific strategy. So what would be our strategy to ensure that we enjoy our time at the beach? What would we need to bring with us? Umbrella? What else? Towels? Swim trunks, don't want to be naked. What else? Sunscreen, it's very important. What else? Food, what else? Beer. Now, anybody besides me ever forget a critical component of that strategy when you went to the beach? Now let's say we decided to shift environments. And we said, hey, this beach thing is cool. Now I want to go skiing. And I'm like, hey guys, I'm going to put you all on a plane. We're going to take this to a ski lodge. That is a very different environment that requires a very different strategy and set of tools. So what would our strategy be for that environment? Overalls, what else? Snow boots, what else? Snowboard? What would happen if we tried to use the strategy for the beach for skiing? What would your experience be like? Not enjoyable, right? Now, here's what I see happening. I see agents utilizing a strategy or strategies that they were using 2 years ago in a completely different environment for this environment and wondering why they're not getting the same results. Well, I first started selling real estate in 2006. Now, that was a very specific economic and therefore real estate environment. Who here was selling real estate at that time? Oh, good. A good number of people. It was great. Why? Because they had a loan product that said, hey, you could basically say, I make $150,000, and they were like, I believe you. Right? That's unbelievable. And prices were going up 20, 30%. Everybody had FOMO, fear of missing out. They're taking out equity lines to buy other properties because they think it always, right? Okay. So I started selling real estate in 2006 after graduating from the University of Florida. And at that time in college, what the marketplace was giving me was condo conversions. Anybody remember condo conversions? What they would do is buy a 50-year-old pig, put some lipstick on it, and sell the units, right? To the parents and saying, hey, this is an investment. When your kids graduate, it'll be worth something, right? So I sold a lot of those. And then 2008 happened. What caused it to change was a financial collapse. We had huge, large financial institutions disappearing off the planet. In my state, 50% of everything on the market was a short sale or foreclosure. In my county, there were 22,000 properties on the market for sale. Prices going down in the opposite direction, 20, 30% per year. And I didn't know how I needed to change my strategy because I'd been using this other strategy at 26 years old, make $150,000 thinking I'm the man. And then that strategy disappears and it's no longer applicable. So what I did is I got access to a guide. Call that person a mentor, a coach, who could point me in the direction of where the opportunities were. Because you see, at that time, something exploded in the market. What explodes when there's 22,000 properties on the market for sale? Expired listings. They were at the highest they've ever been in history. I grew my business by 25% year over year. And after 4 years was doing 100 transactions and 75 were expireds. I changed my what? Strategy. Does that make sense to you guys? And I believe that everybody here with the right strategy, and knowing where to look can continue to, you could dominate any marketplace, including this one, which has changed radically. Has anybody noticed that the environment's changed radically? In preparation for coming, me and Joe were talking about it. I looked at numbers for the county where you guys do business. 2021, this last month that we just passed, there were 7,500 transactions. This year in 2024, there's 4,500. It's gone down 58%. I see a lot of heads nodding. That is an accurate assessment of reality. Huh? We're going to go over what's happening briefly, why it's happening, right? Approximately how long that's going to persist for. Anybody notice that like 5 months ago, everybody started posting that rates were going to come down 5 or 6 times in 2024? Hey, let me ask you a question. Have they? Not once. Okay? That's agents hoping that it gets a lot easier to do business. Right? So what's happening? Why is it happening? And then more importantly, what strategies are actually working? Is this making sense? So that way everybody can continue, because you guys are all top producers, you can continue to get your unfair share, because it's not the fastest, according to Darwin, or the quickest, or the smartest, or the prettiest, or the one with the most followers. It's the ones that are the most adaptive to what? Change. Does that make sense? All right, cool. Who's up for this AI? I'm sorry, I didn't fly from Fort Lauderdale for that level of energy. Who's up for this AI? Okay. So, what's happening? Well, who knows what percentage of homeowners have an interest rate less than 6%? 90%. We will shop for 3 hours to save $100 on Amazon. Why are we hallucinating that somebody's going to trade their 3% for 7%? Why would they do that? Only for a very specific reason. What I would call a life event. Who wants to give me examples of life events?
Divorce.
Divorce? What else?
Death.
Death. What else?
Retirement.
Retirement. Job relocations. Moving to assisted living facilities. Moving to be closer to family. Downsizing, right? So remember how I shared with you how I did all those expireds? What happened in 2011? Marketplace got good. What happens to expires? Do you think I just very maturely said, oh, I need to pivot and change? You think that's what I did? No, what do you guys do when you don't get what you want? You throw a temper tantrum just like children do. This isn't fair. Why should I have to change? But then I pivoted to probates. I live in heaven's waiting room, team. I have the largest elderly population in the country. And you know what that did? I went from 100 deals to 200 deals. All because I was willing to, this, you could just answer this yourself. Doesn't have to be out loud. We're all friends here. What percentage of what you're doing have you changed in the last 18 to 24 months? Be honest. Interesting. Is it mature to imagine that I cannot change and still get my unfair share? No. Essentially, I'm waiting. I'm praying to the real estate gods. Please change. Make sense? So that's actually what's happening. What's also happening is that volume, we went from 6 million across the country to 4 million transactions. In this geographic area, from 17,000, we just looked at numbers, to 10,000. Now, the question is, how long do we imagine that's going to persist? Anybody notice that economists rarely know what the hell they're talking about? On a regular basis, right? Well, the last time we had interest rates this high, the Fed funds rate, do you know how long it stayed that high? A decade. Let me ask you a question. Are you prepared for it to stay for a decade? Is your strategy appropriate to staying with this number of transactions for the next decade? No, I appreciate your honesty, right? Because I can't change it if I'm not aware of it. So that's what's happening, right? Now the question is how do I deal with it? Because I have two choices. You know what the first choice is? Stick my head in the sand. How many people know somebody sticking their head in the sand? Yeah, right? But they're still posting on Instagram. Hashtag blessed. Right? Which is ridiculous. I can stick my head in the sand or I can deal with it. You need an accurate assessment of reality in order to produce a good outcome. We just cast that, didn't we? Everybody clear on what's true? And your ability to deal with it is directly correlated with getting what you want. Who wants more deals? Yeah. I love it when people say, why'd you get into real estate? I love people. I'm like, that's disgusting. You haven't dealt with enough people. I love houses. I'm like, you know how many times I had to burn my suit because it was like a cat farm? We do this We help people, but it's also to make money, right? So what's actually working? Well, let's logically think about this. How many people have noticed that there's less opportunities for listings? So what can we logically conclude about that? Every listing appointment you go on, you will more likely than not be what? Competing, right? So what would be a way to deal with that? Logically. Go on more appointments. What else? Ah. Let me ask a candid question. How many people here practice their listing presentation daily? Everybody here is apparently independently wealthy. Now, here's my question. Is that a realistic expectation in an environment with a lot less transactions? You think what's going to get it is you walk in, you're like, oh my God, you have a puppy, I have a puppy. Yay. You should hire me. That's ridiculous, right? That doesn't make any sense. So what's working are agents that are going on lots of appointments on a regular basis. Even though he's a top agent, you know what he does all the time? What do you think? Practices all the time. Do you think it's a fair competition when you go up against somebody who practices daily? No, it's not. Does that make sense? So that's one thing that's actually working right now.
What I would say as well too, just to add on that, and when I got started in the business, I struggled quite a bit. I went 6 months without a sale. I was a buyer's agent at first, and when I made the transition to the listing side, I kept getting beat out by Jim Sandoval, Eric Delgado, like every single one of them would always take the listing, and I wasn't. But then Aaron asked me like a key question just to kind of go on the skills. And what he asked me is like, hey, Jose Luis, what's your competitive advantage? He said like, what makes you different in the marketplace? And I proceeded to say something like, oh, I'm honest. I'm like hardworking.
I put my clients first.
I put my clients first, things like that. And he said, Jose, that's what everybody does. Everybody's honest or supposed to be honest. Everybody's hardworking. Everybody is a good human being. He's like, if you're going to compete, you got to have a competitive advantage. And I listened to this podcast called Founders. And in that podcast, they kind of give like the story of like different founders that have founded different companies like Jeff Bezos, Uber, just like different stories. And they go into like Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett strategy. Do you know what's one of the things that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger look when they're investing in businesses? They look for businesses that have a moat around their business or some sort of competitive advantage.
That's difficult to breach.
That's difficult to breach. So I asked Aaron, I said, what's your competitive advantage? And he proceeded to tell me, he's like, I am the most skilled agent in my marketplace. People know when they're competing against me on a listing presentation, that if I'm going on that appointment, they better bring their A game. And 95% of the time, I am going to win. He's like, I want to be feared where when people find out that they're going on a listing appointment against me, that they almost like psych themselves out.
Correct.
Like almost like, oh my God, like
I might as well not even go.
I'm going against Aaron.
Right.
And what I incorporated, and this is right next to you guys, I'm like literally like next door neighbors to every single one of you. I said, okay, that's actually a pretty good competitive advantage. I said, if I'm going to have a competitive advantage that's going to last, I said, what do I want it to be? So I adopted that mindset thanks to Aaron, where I said, all right, I am going to be the most skilled agent in my marketplace, knowing that when I go on a listing appointment and other agents find out that I'm going on a listing appointment, they're going to second guess whether they're going to want to go on that listing appointment. So one of the things that I did is not only did I become very skilled, but I said, okay, how am I going to differentiate myself from other agents? So what I came up with was a solution-oriented approach. Meaning if I'm going on a listing appointment, I find out what the problem is and what they need help with, and then I sell based on that problem. So it's not like, okay, what do I offer to you? It's like, okay, tell me a little bit about what you're going through. I identify the problem, and then it's so easy to sell based on the problem. So like somebody's like, oh, like I'm having trouble getting my property ready for sale. Oh, I actually know great contractors that can help you get that property ready for sale. Someone's like, oh, I'm struggling, basically boxing up items. Hey, what if I told you I could send somebody to help you box items? Somebody has a vacant property. Hey, what if I told you that I can stage the property for free? So I came up with a differentiation strategy where I came up with a solution to almost every single problem that exists. I challenge you guys to think about, okay, what is my competitive advantage here in the marketplace? Like, what makes me different? And what's my value proposition to the consumers? That way, when I'm going on appointments, what's my competitive advantage?
So in an environment where there's less opportunities, one of the ways to deal with that is to become exceptionally more skilled. And that's one thing we could be working on, because when I asked how many people do that on a regular basis, there were no hands, okay? The second thing is this niche thing. So when I said that to you guys, everybody gave me the answers of the niches. Can I ask you guys a question? How many people have intentionally and purposefully tried to cultivate one of those niches? Death, divorce, job relocation, moving to assisted living facilities, like purposefully and intentionally. Yeah, one.
Maybe.
Guys, and the two people making the most money. Like, guys, like what I'm aware of, do you see? You can all tell me that these are the places I should be looking, but we're not actually doing anything about it, right? When I started probate, you know how much I knew about that? 0. And I went to the courthouse 6 or 7 times to figure it out. And it was a pain. And I was like, oh, I could be doing other things. But then once I figured it out, I started to call them and drop the amount of people I was calling for expireds, because that source was dwindling. And within 3 months, I'm taking 4 listings a month. All because I had a willingness to change, right? So that's the second thing that's working, that is niches. And I know Jose, and that's one of the things he's going to talk about is, you know, we are trained, because I think the loudest voices in the training community, and perhaps, and I mean this lovingly, older voices, are saying things like they're saying things like expireds, for sale by owners, cancels, just listed, just sold. The 4 horsemen, okay? But what that causes you to do is to think like a real estate agent. Do you know why these guys get so many leads? They don't think like a real estate agent. They think like a wholesaler or an investor. And if you want to see lists, those guys call 15 or 20 lists. They call Liz Pendis. They call people that are behind, that they have liens for 90 days. They call, and we'll go over that. But do you see my point? Is that if I got to go where the opportunities are, and in an environment like the one that we're in with less transactions, where the opportunities are the ones that are extremely motivated. Somebody says to you, I want to sell my house because I want to get more room for my dog's backyard. That's not going to cut it, team. They're not going to be willing to do what it takes. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, the next thing that's working, let's think about this logically. If there's less transactions and there's less people that are motivated, what we do as agents never changes. How much of it we do and how we do it is what changes. So if there's less opportunities, what would that mean for the amount of people I would need to speak to on a regular basis? Double or triple? Can I ask an honest question? How many people here have doubled or tripled the amount of contacts they're making? 2. And what's interesting is you guys have in your midst somebody who has a solution to that problem. Because he has this dialer that will allow you to make 50 contacts an hour. And if you are doing that, you could make the amount of contacts in 1 week that it would normally take you 2 months to make. Now, wouldn't it logically make sense that if there's less people doing business, I would have to talk to way more people in order to find the people that need to do something? Is that an accurate assessment? Yes. Yeah. How many people are utilizing that on a regular basis? That's 4. Okay. Next thing that's working. If I need to speak to more people, I have a tool that will allow me to speak to 50 contacts an hour. Would it logically make sense to have somebody else stand next to me, use that same tool so I can double or triple the amount of contacts that I'm making? So you've had those dialers working for how long with on the Enzo dialer?
Probably like 3 weeks.
And how many listings have you taken?
3. And a wholesale.
Hey,
Yeah.
And how much did you make on the wholesale?
25.
Just a light 25.
Yeah.
And how much do you think those commissions will equal?
Maybe like 60,000.
60?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 85,000 bucks. And you guys are like, well, you know, that dialer's like $1,500. Like, what? How does that logically make sense? Right? These are just things to deal with what's happening. We clear on that? The next thing that's working right now, cash offers. Why would cash offers be working in this environment? Now, if somebody raises their hand and says they want a cash offer, what does that say about their motivation? Oh, so it's a mechanism to actually find people that are motivated. Why did these big platforms all have cash offer programs? Why do you think they did that?
Lead generate.
They know statistically only 5% of people accept their cash offer. Do you know what that leaves them with? Seller leads that they sell back to you for 35%. So wouldn't it logically make sense that I do that for myself? Yes. How many people have cash offer programs? Huh. Interesting. Yeah. Angel. And this guy.
And Jose.
Yeah. They also have, there's platforms that are called pay per lead. One of them is Need to Sell My House Fast. What they do is they find people through their online mechanism that get people to raise their hand and say they want a cash offer. You can call those people. Only 5% will accept the cash offer. You know what the other ones you just end up with? I'm sorry? I'm sorry, loud and proud. Listing leads. My ability to deal with reality is directly correlated with being able to accurately assess it and then come up with a plan. I believe, based on what we're experiencing, the environment that we're in isn't going to change anytime soon. So if I want to do more, I need to adjust my strategy and approach, because we were in summer and everything was yay. And now this is what? Winter. Correct? And I need a completely different strategy. So, and what's awesome is we have somebody here who's doing every single one of those things. So Jose, I think you can talk about how you're doing that.
It's funny because yesterday Angel came over and we talked about how, or let me ask this. If I asked anybody in the room, like, what your title is for your job, what would you say?
Janitor. Yeah.
Right? What would most people say?
Real estate agent.
Most people would say that I'm a real estate agent. I think that it all begins with changing our identity as to what we call ourselves.
I'm aware that in order to have a good relationship with others, you have to have a good relationship with yourself first. So there's some key components to this. One is an imaginary continuum. You are feeling anxious, like hurried, rushed, hands up to protect yourself from an attack, breathing shallow and quickly, like, are you